And this goes until 8:30, is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
All right. I'm going to cram a ton of information in 23 minutes.
And Betsy, you're welcome to trim off the first 3 minutes before I hit start webinar. Or Jackie can do that. when she
Okay.
gets it.
David, were you moderating yesterday?
Yes, but not as well prepared as I am for you today. I didn't write out my full script and I had to pause several times in the middle of it, which I found quite embarrassing.
No worries,
But you learn from your mistakes sometimes.
okay. No worries. But everything went smoothly other than, the hiccups
Except
there.
at the end, we had a little bit of confusion on who turns it off because I didn't know I couldn't turn it off, which is Betsy and I have already had that discussion.
Got it. Okay.
So we have that all planned out.
Very cool. Okay.
Yes.
So,
I have full permission to kick people out.
Yes. You got the right lady for the job, man.
Yeah. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Okay, I'm about to start the webinar.
All right.
Hello, and welcome to Paving the Holy Braille Highway with Greg Stilson, Head of Global Innovation, the American Printing House for the Blind. We will begin shortly. Hello, and welcome to Paving the Holy Braille Highway with Greg Stilson, Head of Global Innovation, the American Printing House for the Blind. We will begin shortly. Hello, and welcome to Paving the Holy Braille Highway with Greg Stilson, Head of Global Innovation, the American Printing House for the Blind. We will begin in the next minute or so. Hello, and welcome to Paving the Holy Braille Highway with Greg Stilson, Head of Global Innovation, the American Printing House for the Blind, APH. This is a 30-minute session. I am David Ross on the Site Tech Global team. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand in a couple of days after the show on the Site Tech Global website. During the Q&A portion of the breakout, which will be at the end of the session, please use either the Q&A box or the raise my hand feature to ask your questions. The hotkeys for raise lower hand on the Mac is Option plus Y, and on Windows it's Alt plus Y. For those who raise hands, we will be calling your name and activating permission to speak. You will still need to unmute yourself. The hotkeys for unmute on the Mac are Command Shift A, or on Windows Alt plus A. And without further ado, please take it away, Greg Stilson.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you everybody for joining. As David mentioned, I'm Greg Stilson. I run the Global Tech Innovations team at the American Printing House for the Blind, and some folks may be asking, what is that team? So we've modified that team over the last 2 to 3 years to really bring products from ideation to market under one department, and really focusing on subject matter experts, drawing from the collective brain power of the American Printing House for the Blind and all of the other departments, along with our trusted teachers of the visually impaired, ex officios, trustees, and of course users. So I run a department of technical product managers, quality assurance analysts, accessibility specialists, and software engineers. And I'm really privileged to be surrounded by so many people who are way smarter than me. So today we are going to talk about a lot of really exciting information. It's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be crammed into a very short amount of time. So please, I apologize that I may not get to all of your questions. But before I even start, I want to mention that if we don't get to your question, which we probably won't get to everybody's, feel free to shoot. We set up an email address devoted to the Dynamic Tactile Device. It's just simply dtd@aph.org. That's D as in Dave. Well, actually, D as in dynamic, T as in tactile, D as in device @aph.org. If we don't get to your question, feel free to shoot it that way, and myself or one of our team will get back to you. So we're going to talk about the background. Where did this project start? The device specifications, how the testing is going, and then what we're calling the Holy Braille Highway. And this is probably the most important part of this project. How you get involved, and then we won't get to a demonstration, unfortunately, because the technology camera gods are not on my side today. So we will end with how you get involved, which is probably also one of the most important parts. So let's talk about the background. Really, the goal is of this project is one that has been around for the longest time, and this is the concept of, what many refer to as this Holy Braille, right? It's this dynamic tactile device that can do graphics and standard Braille on the same surface. Why is this important for the American Printing House for the Blind? We're the largest producer of tactile textbooks, and if any of you are like I was in school as a blind person, tactile textbooks are gigantic. I always use the numbers of last year we produced a Algebra 2 book that was nearly 40 volumes in length, and cost almost 30 grand to produce, right? In those books, any of the graphics may not always be with the actual text. They may be in separate volumes. So you may be looking at text in one volume and then have to make sure that you grab the correct graphics volume that's associated to that text, right? So, and I'm sure many of you have some PTSD, as do I, of forgetting the volume that you need for the appropriate class, and having the classroom teacher say, turn to page 126, and your volume starts at 180. So our goal of this, and really what we call our North Star, is bringing textbooks digitally to students. It's not, it's not like going to be, it's coming from the publisher and boom, it's right there. That's our dream, but we're going to start with starting from the transcriber, having the transcriber make sure that they've transcribed the Braille, and then clicking a button and boom, it's right on your device. We want to create a platform that can expand with technology and expand with new ideas and developers. And that is that development partner network, being able to create a software development kit that will enable partners to create apps and experiences for a dynamic tactile device. So the why, our goal, and this is a metric that we kind of created for this project, is reduce the time to fingertips. Right now, there are often times where students don't receive their textbook until the semester's over, And I can tell you that happened to me in a calculus class. Oftentimes they receive it late. This is a situation where the teacher may have put in the request late. Maybe there's a backlog in the textbook production, or they've received the wrong volumes. Let's say they've received volumes 1 through 3, but the classroom teacher's starting at page 200 and their volumes only go up to page 160. That is a very real scenario that I'm sure many of you can remember. We also there's a significant need for impromptu learning tools. Right now, teachers of the visually impaired are doing amazingly creative things in the classroom when a classroom teacher does not get that information to them ahead of time, which I know you all are shocked to hear, but that actually happens, right? Classroom teachers forget to ask for content to become accessible. And these teachers of visually impaired are left using rubber bands and wiki sticks and all these other amazingly creative puffy paint on the fly to create graphics or to create experiences that can at least be used as a start for learning. Our dream with this device is that you're going to be able to take an image, or a TVI will be able to draw an image on a tablet or smartphone and cast that image directly to this device so that the student can access some impromptu learning at that point. And then, we hear about this from many of the advocates out there. There is a tactile famine, and I love the way that that's put. There is just not enough graphics out there for students to do proper learning. You think about a sighted person when they drive to work, the amount of images that they see is in the millions, right? Just from the time that they drive out of their garage to the time that they arrive at work, they're seeing all of these things. A blind person doesn't have access to that, right? We have to touch and feel our graphics and our experiences, and there's just not enough of them out there. And so our goal is, in partnership with the Tactile Graphics Image Library and this device, to greatly expand the amount of graphics that are out there. Why we believe this will succeed is because we're not trying to do it by ourselves. We are not alone in this project. We've partnered in 2020. We put out a request for information and looked at a ton of different technologies out there. We chose HumanWare as our equal investment partner in this. HumanWare and APH have partnered in many other projects. But HumanWare was not the creator of the technology that can really render these dots in the way that they can. And that we owe a huge thanks to Dot Incorporated out of South Korea. They are HumanWare's tactile technology provider and a partner in this project. They have done something that is truly innovative in the Braille world, and something we've been waiting for years. So a huge kudos to Dot's technology for this. But another big partnership that I want to call out, and this is this is quite honestly why I believe a lot of the past attempts at a Holy Braille-ish type of device have not succeeded, is because blind people were not involved in the development and they were not involved in the testing. We partnered with the National Federation of the Blind, the largest consumer organization in the world of blind people, to really help guide us in our development, in our testing. We meet on a monthly basis with the National Federation of the Blind, and they have been crucial in helping us with actually getting blind people's fingertips on this device and doing it in large quantities. More than 30 businesses and organizations for the blind around the world are involved in also an additional piece of the puzzle, which is the electronic Braille format, the new electronic Braille format that we're working on. Because a device like this is great from a technology point of view, but if you don't have the actual format, file format that supports what it can do, it's still not going to increase efficiency nearly as much as it could. Let's talk a little bit about the dot technology. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because I know they already had a presentation talking about their technology, but it is a true innovation in Braille. It is extremely thin. It uses a locking mechanism to keep the dots up. So for folks who have neuropathy, oftentimes with the piezoelectric, you can push those pins down. The Braille dots that are produced by the dot tech cannot be pushed down. So those folks with neuropathy can actually feel them much better. It's a very durable design. And like I said, it's extremely thin, so it gives flexibility down the road for new innovations in Braille tech as well. So what does the device look like? So it's a self-contained unit. It is not reliant on being connected to something else. And I want to make that really apparent because a student's desk is not, I don't know if you all remember when you were in school, but I recently, my daughter started kindergarten and we did back to school night there. And I looked at these desks and I said, huh, they are still as small as they always were. So the reality is that the desk is not big enough to support multiple devices that are large on this thing. So the first thing we looked at was the use case on the student's desk, and the reality was it had to be self-contained. It had to be a self-reliant unit. So it is a tactile array consisting of equidistant pin in the size of 10 lines by 32 cells of Braille. And when you say that in its total, this device can produce 320 characters of Braille. There is touch sensors for touch and gesture manipulation. It is a single dot height, so we're reliant on a lot of the Braille standards to represent things like shading, dashing, things like that. We don't have multi-pin height to do graphic shading and things like that, so we're relying on textures to do that. There is a Braille keyboard input to actually input content as well, because this is not just going to be a content consumption tool, but also a content creation tool. So it is under the hood, it is an Android tablet underneath, but it is a very customized version of that. There is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB, HDMI in and out. There's a headphone jack. And when I tell you what it looks like, it's a very similar dimension to a 15-inch gaming laptop is about the size of it. It is about 4.5 pounds, will consist of an all-day battery for the student to use it during all of their classes. And the really incredible thing is you can refresh all 320 cells in just about a second and a half, something like that. The software foundation we're going to be relying on, these are going to be the apps that we're sort of building off of the start. But like I said, we're also going to, and I'll get to this in a second, we're going to be building an SDK or software development kit to expand this to partners as well who also want to develop for this platform. We're going to be building a tactile textbook library, so an e-reader where you'll be able to not only access your textbooks, but also search for textbooks. So a connection to bookshare.org and to other libraries around the world where we can actually search and download for existing books, but then accessing books directly from the American Printing House for the Blind or other textbook production or book production platforms that are supporting the new EBRF standard as well. This will support all of the standards today, DAISY, DAISY Text, standard BRF, but the best solution that you're going to get or the best experience is going to be with this new EBRF that I'll talk about in a minute. There will be a multi-line word processor, so being able to create a Microsoft Word doc, but actually create and see a formatted Microsoft Word doc. If something is centered, if something is right justified, actually seeing that on the tactile array. There's a tactile image viewer that will have a direct connection to the tactile graphics image library, and then we're looking to also partner with additional repositories of tactile graphics around the world as well. And that'll have another search box in it that you can search for specific tactile graphics. And you think about the power there, right? Being able to say, I want to see the boron atom, or I want to see the water molecule. And if it's in the tactile graphics image library, you literally hit enter and it downloads to your device and you can view it. We're going to be partnering with Desmos to create a graphing calculator, not just to be able to spit out the graphs, but actually to be able to manually plot them in the same fashion that I'm sure many of you had my experience of using Braille graph paper, cutting up a wiki stick and creating sticky points on that graph paper. You'll be able to do that with the touch surface of this device as well. That's one of our primary goals, is to actually create graphs manually as well. And then the tactile monitor is what I was telling you before, being able to cast or send graphics to this device for that impromptu learning experience. And most importantly, this is only the beginning. This is what we are looking to build at the outset. But most importantly, this is not the be all end all. Our goal is to open up a platform where more apps could be experienced, more apps could be downloaded or purchased. Um, and I'm a huge gamer. I love video games, always have, and so I have so many dreams and probably a biased dream of creating tactile games on this device as well. Testing, as I mentioned to you before, the National Federation of the Blind has been crucial in helping us with a lot of these questions. The most important question we had to decide was how did we choose the 10 by 32? And we did this during COVID, and it was really hard. We were sending out literal packets of pieces of paper cut into the shapes of these tactile arrays with different graphics to see how many cells, how much of a graphic you could see immediately when a graphic was loaded up. And the overall, and I would say the very unanimous decision was 10 lines of 32. The partnership with National Federation of the Blind, they have been super helpful in providing us testers. At the National Federation of the Blind conference in New Orleans this year, we tested over 18 hours of direct user feedback. That's direct people having fingertips on devices giving us feedback. And that's just something if I think about trying to do that throughout the year, traveling and the amount of places that we would have had to go to get that feedback, that was extremely helpful and taught us so many different lessons. So the Holy Braille Highway, and as I mentioned, this is where it really gets impactful, is because building tech for tech's sake doesn't do anything for anybody. You have to have a network of support. You have to have file standards and commitment by the community to be able to support these file standards to make the device do what it needs to do and to make the experience be what it needs to be for active learning to really happen. So we're partnering with more than 30 organizations, and the DAISY Consortium has committed to taking on the EBRF format, and this is the electronic Braille ready format. That is really a dynamic and interactable new file type, right? Our goal with this is to basically take all of the benefits that you get or a sighted person gets from an EPUB in a Kindle book or things like that, all the navigation benefits, all the graphical connections, footnotes, endnotes, all of that kind of stuff, but also ensure that we're able to keep all of those benefits while keeping what I would call Braille integrity, right? When you use a DAISY text file today, you get those navigation DAISY components, right? You can jump pages and chapters and things like that, but you lose all of the Braille formatting. You don't get the center lines, you don't get the connected graphics, you don't get any of that. It becomes a wall of text essentially that is navigable by this markup. And so that's really where we're focused heavily right now, is focusing on the making sure that the Braille comes first and the formatting comes first, but you're able to connect graphics to the text, and most importantly, be able to navigate the device as efficiently as a sighted person flipping to a certain page in a book. This will greatly reduce the time to fingertips. We're still going to need a transcriber to do all of the legwork of transcribing the book from the publisher, but when they're done transcribing a section of that book, let's say you need chapters 1 through 5, they no longer have to run it through the production process of embossing, binding, packaging, shipping free matter for the blind, and then it gets to you in 3 months. They can literally click a button, upload it to your library in the cloud, and you'll see a notification on your device that says, hey, your book is ready at that stage. Empowering creativity. APH and HumanWare, as I mentioned, are designing an SDK, software development kit, for partners to get involved here. Our hope is to create a monetization process for partners also to potentially make money on this platform. At this stage, we're going to start with just the SDK, working with those partners in a contractual basis to be able to put experiences on this device. But down the road, I do hope that we'll be able to say, here's an open platform that you'll be able to create content and monetize that content as well. Pricing and funding. This is the number one thing that we always hear, and it's a hard question to answer because we know that the cost is way too high for the federal quota system today. For those of you who are unaware, APH distributes upwards of 25 to 30 million dollars throughout the U.S. for federal quota funding to purchase products from the American Printing House for the Blind. The device at this point is looking like it's going to be anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000, $16,000. So it's going to be extremely expensive and extremely cost prohibitive for both consumers and for the federal quota system. And that's another reason why we're also partnering with the National Federation of the Blind, and we're doing our own advocacy to create a separate pool of funding that is in addition to the federal quota system, where uh, it focuses really on emerging technology and allows these higher priced devices to be purchased with federal dollars, um, and not completely diminish the federal quota system, because you still need all of the things that the manipulatives, the Braille paper, all of these things are still going to be required from the federal quota dollars, but we don't want to take all those dollars and put it into a DTD. So there is active advocacy going on, and I urge all of you, if you have ever talked to your Congress people, or if you would like to, tell your story. That's the best way that we can advocate for this device. Tell your story of why a device like this would be valuable for you and why it should be funded. The more stories, Paul Schrader, our government affairs VP, always tells me that, politicians are so used to talking to politicians, they don't often talk to regular run-of-the-mill people, right? So telling your story is so impactful, and being able to tell why this is so important and how this could have changed your life during education or in your workplace is really a crucial piece of the puzzle. Where are we today? We have a working alpha unit, and it is so cool to see. We just to see that the tactile array functioning and actually seeing this dream starting to come to fruition is one of the most powerful things as a blind person myself, to see it happening. We are organizing testing centers around the country at schools and things at different locations. That's going to be a big focus in 2023, is testing. We're expecting our first beta units in March of 23, and that's going to be a wave of beta units, right? We're going to see a few starting in the beginning in March, and then we'll see some in May, some in June, some in August. Our goal is to try to circulate 100 beta units around the country. We will see how that comes to fruition with all the supply chain issues and things like that. HumanWare is our international partner in this process, and so they will be working internationally with APH to circulate this to our international markets as well. How do you get involved? And this is, I'll finish with this, is you can get involved by joining the mailing list on freelist.org for the Dynamic Tactile Device. In addition, the easiest way to get in touch and just to reach out is to send an email to that dtd@aph.org. And if you are, one of the obligations we have for the federal government is going through field testing. And that is something that will happen hopefully end of next year. If you are in the education system and would like to be a field tester for this device in the school system, please sign up on our website. If you go to aph.org, there is a get involved section, a field testing session. You can sign up right there to become a field tester for the American Printing House for the Blind. And with that, I am going to pause with 5 minutes left because I rambled a lot. I apologize, to answer some questions. And like I said, if we can't get to your question, email dtd@aph.org, and we'd be happy to get back to you. So I will turn it over to Betsy Ann to elevate some questions if we can.
All right, first question that came in. What drives such a high cost for this device?
It's a great question. These cells, as they are reduced in price, they're still not $2 cells. You're still dealing with cells that are, and I can't, due to contractual obligations, I can't speak to the price of the cells, but I can tell you they are not cheap. And when you stack in, I mentioned 320 characters of Braille. You got to remember, these are equidistant pins. If we actually look at the number of Braille cells on this surface, you could count 480 Braille cells on this surface to create the surface that would be required to create 320 Braille characters. And so, you do the math. You say what you want on the pricing of the cells, but the reality is that a huge chunk of money is still tied up in the cost of the cells. Then you look at the very high-end platform that we're using to try to drive this whole process. We also need an additional board underneath to power and raise all of these cells. So the hardware costs are still exorbitant with this. And that's really where we've done all we could to try to reduce it. But when you try to get a self-contained unit that would work on a student's desk and in and of itself, the reality is it is going to be an expensive product.
All right. Next question. Will the device have speech?
It will. Thank you so much. I forgot to put that in my PowerPoint. The device will have speakers and a headphone jack, also microphone in, so you will be able to speak into the device as well to do different functions. So yes, it will have stereo speakers on it.
Next question. Will the SDK be based on Android app development? If we develop or test an iOS app that outputs to dot displays, will there be anything to assist in porting successful apps over to this device?
So it's a two-part question. Our friends at Dot, as you've noticed, have done some great work with Apple and being able to build that specification. And we're really excited to be able to take advantage and build off of what they've done and build with our partners Apple there to be able to use this device as an output to an iOS device. So if you have built an iOS app that can output to a tactile display, that should work on this device as we build that tactile monitor app. Having said that, being able to port or modify those apps to run on Android will be something if you want it to be actually built into the device. So there's a couple paths there, right? You can use an external device like an iPhone or an iPad to essentially AirPlay or Bluetooth connect to this device, and then render the graphics or the content from that app on this device in the way that you've built it. Or if you want it to run on this device, yes, it will be an Android-based application.
All right, we're about 1 minute out from the closing, so very quick answer. Will it be possible for teachers to add their own documents and text to the device? If so, how?
Absolutely. So there is a USB thumb drive port on the side. It will also, we're really pushing to have cloud storage on this as well. We're advocating with Google to be able to access the Google Drive and Google Classroom content directly from this device. So being able to do that in the cloud is crucial, right, with the learning management systems. But there is, down and dirty, there's a USB port right on the side. You can put Word docs, PDFs, or BRFs, or hopefully eBRFs on the device and be able to access directly from that thumb drive or save it onto the device.
All right, we've reached time. So thanks everybody for attending today, and I'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you again to Greg and Betsy. And as a reminder, this session will be available on demand in a couple of days on the Sight Tech Global website. Please return to the Sight Tech Global website to catch a deep dive into Apple's industry-leading screen reader VoiceOver on the main stage, or make your way to our next breakout session at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you all.
Hi, thank you all for joining. If we didn't get to your questions, one more time, it's dtd@aph.org. Thanks for spending your time with us. Have a great day.